Good morning. I'm Dr. Laura Shackelford, and welcome to The Higher View. Today is going to be a little different show for me. I'm going to have, my guest is going to be Dr. Arthur Chang. Now, Dr. Arthur Chang, this is going to be a video, but let me tell you who Dr. Arthur Chang is. He is the spiritual director, the pastor of the Center for Spiritual Living in Hollywood, in LA, but it's known as the Founders Church. And this was the original church of Ernest Holmes. And I'd never been there before. And Jeff Harrison, who does all our great media with our staff, with his staff, he told me he was going to Founders. He's been doing things, kind of what he does for Palm Desert. And I said, oh, I'd love to go sometime because I've never been. And I heard what an amazing place it was. So I took a little trek with Jeff Harrison into Los Angeles and went to Founders. And I want to tell you a little bit. So we have a video today with Dr. Arthur explaining to me about the center and showing it to me. And I want to give you a little history about that church and about Ernest Holmes. So those of you who aren't familiar with Center for Spiritual Living, any of our centers for spiritual living, we study the teachings. The main teaching is the Science of Mind textbook, which I'm going to do a book study on that later down the road. But this was a textbook. And Ernest Holmes took all these great teachers. He studied, Christianity. He studied all the spiritual teachings and really found the common thread, which is about love and law, that there are laws in the universe, and it's all about love. So Ernest Holmes started back. He published his first book, which was Creative Mind, in 1919, and then he continued his studies. He kept studying all these different faith traditions and so forth. And so he then started writing the Science of Mind textbook, and that was published in about 1926, and then it was revised in 1938. And it's been published in, I don't know how many different languages: French, German, Spanish, Russian, and Japanese. And he really didn't want an organization, but he refused at first, but eventually he agreed. And the Institute of Religious Science and School of Philosophy was incorporated in 1927. And then in the year of 1927, Ernest founded the Science of Mind magazine. And anyway, his teaching just started booming. Ernest and Hazel was his wife. They were active in this burgeoning culture. Spirituality was huge back at that time. It was just being born. People were hungry for it. They wanted to know what this was all about. And so some of the people that studied with him were Norman Vincent Peale. He had Albert Einstein and many university professors, and they taught at the Institute, in fact. And Ernest could talk with all of them. But his main thing was he loved the truth. So those were busy years, and the Institute acquired a beautiful piece of property at 6th and New Hampshire in 1953. The Institute then became known as the Church of Religious Science in 1967, and then it changed its name to United Church of Religious Science, and now they're known as the Centers for Spiritual Living. So in 1957, Ernest's wife Hazel made her transition, and it changed his life. In 1959, with his brother Fenwick Holmes, he completed a poem which is one of his most popular ones, is The Voice Celestial. And then in January of 1960, he presided at the dedication of the beautiful Founders Church. And at that time, adjacent to the church, they had bought this huge property, and adjacent to the church, and the building's still there. Centers for Spiritual Living no longer owns it. They sold it, but it used to be the home office. Okay, so it was dedicated in 1959. In January 1960, he presided at the dedication of the church, and then 3 months later, he made his transition. So there's so much history there, and so I'm going to share this video with you. I know you'll enjoy it, and go ahead, Krista, show them the video of Founders and my talk with Dr. Chang. So welcome to the Higher View today, and I am so excited. I just decided to go with Jeff Harrison because I've never been to Founders. And today I have the honor of having Dr. Arthur Chang give us a tour and tell us about some of the history. This is Dr. Holmes' church. And anyway, Dr. Arthur, welcome. So tell us about, this is the main sanctuary. They have two sanctuaries, but this is the main one. And how many seats are in here?
It's almost 1,500.
Yes.
And you know, in the days of the early days when it was open, we had at least 2 services here, and the place was packed. And when there was an overflow at Easter, the chapel, which is downstairs, would have closed circuit television.
Oh.
And then there were 3 services on that day when there was Easter. And on this stage here that you see here, there were 2 main pageants that took place in each year. One was at Easter. We reenact the entire Easter story, including Jesus ascending to heaven.
Oh, really?
Yes. And it was very cleverly done. And then
that wasn't the cross that you put him on, was it?
Well, no.
on Friday.
But it's a whole musical. The whole thing is a musical with Bob Ralston playing Bob Ralston played for the what is that group called?
Lawrence Welk.
The
Lawrence Welk show.
And he was the master on that organ up there, the largest theater organ in the world. That is in a church.
In a church, right.
And up there is the choir loft, and behind it really is a wonderful mural of the great symbols of religions in the world. And if you look carefully, you'll see the Bible there in the middle.
Yes.
You'll see Science of Mind over there
The
on the
symbol
top.
there.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see the crescent thing, and you can see the Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look through it, there's actually a chart we have somewhere with all of them and explaining what each is.
Because we welcome all faiths,
Yes,
right?
yes. So you know, religious science is the correlation of the laws of science, the opinions of philosophy, and the insight of religion applied to the needs and aspiration of man, says Ernest Holmes. And this, in one fell swoop, is really trying to say all that.
Right.
And it is done by black lighting. It's not what it seems to be. It's not stained glass. It's a mural with a black lighting, giving it that particular
feeling.
effect that you
It
have
does,
here.
absolutely.
If you look here, you'll see 5 steps up. This is the 5 steps of treatment
Oh, wow.
that was deliberately designed into the program. And if you look around here, you will see that the feeling of roundedness is what Ernest Holmes wanted, the feeling of oneness. And if you look even the ceiling, it looked like the stars in
Yes.
the sky, the dome. And all these were deliberate, done by Paul Revere Williams, the black architect, and only recently has he been acknowledged with a gold medal from the Institute of Architects, AIA. He's long dead, but
Right.
but back in the day when he was doing this and doing many wonderful buildings for film stars, black people were not supposed to be able to do this.
Wow.
And one of the things that we do, well, several things that we did during my time here, is that besides those 2 festivals that we had there, we had 4 special days. In Black History, we would have a special day that features the history of black people and the music, and sometimes even how tap dance was developed, because from the people in Ireland and their
Right.
the black folks developed tap dancing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so we did all that, and we educated our public. We started out mostly white. It shifted as time went on to more black, half and half, and nowadays it's probably a little more black than white. And we don't have the big population because we are in a place where now this has become Koreatown, even though...
Oh, really?
Yes, it's called Koreatown now. But there are like 55% Korean, Hispanics living here and maybe 35% Koreans. So there are two languages spoken, but they're not English. So, and in the old days, everything happened right here at Founders. This is where all the assemblage took place. Until a few years ago, the graduations used to take place here too. And so we had all this to support the movement. And Founders, for a long time, in its supported headquarters, which is over there next door. And that wealth really supported the entire movement.
Wow.
For a long time.
Well, I mean, this is incredible. And to think of this being packed
Yes.
and having to do 3 services, that was quite an impact.
Yes.
I mean, on
Yes.
the on people's faith and
Yes.
what they believed at
Yes.
that time.
Yes.
Now, what year was this built?
60.
1960? Now, when did Dr. Holmes make his transition?
In the same year, about April, I think. It started out with Holmes and Hornaday doing 1 service each.
Okay.
So I think Hornaday probably did the second service, Holmes the first service. It might be vice versa. And that happened for a little while, and then Holmes got sick.
Okay.
And then he didn't show up anymore.
Right.
And Hornaday used to have, Holmes brothers, Fenwick on there, and some of the real great names, they were like 4 chairs like this on this side and that side, and it was really regal the way it looks. And I used to sit back there when I came from Jamaica and I came here, and I used to listen to the talks because I was already familiar with Science of Mind before I left Jamaica.
Okay.
And so when I came here, I found this place and just kept on going.
Oh, all right. So you're going to give us a little tour?
Yes,
We're going to see the
yes,
historic?
yes,
So,
we can-
So let's just...
Ernest Holmes liked the idea of white flowers in this area because he thought of it as meditative. And during the spring, it really blooms with the chrysanthemum and azaleas around, and it's just absolutely gorgeous to see it when it's in full bloom.
This is the plaque that is for our cornerstone, and there is a time capsule behind it that is supposed to be opened in October 18th of 2059.
Oh, wow.
And so
Yeah, I won't be here.
it's got a message
Oh,
from
no,
Ernest
let's
Holmes
not
in
say
it.
that. Let's not affirm that.
But the thing of it is that we have a spoiler on it because Fenwick pretty much spilled the beans in his book about Ernest Holmes' life and times. And apparently Ernest is saying, I'm certain after 100 years of this church being here that you will have vanquished all, superstition and dogma.
And people who, suddenly they're making of Ernest Holmes what Ernest didn't want them to make of
Right.
him.
Well, Ernest never really wanted us to
I
be
know.
churches, right?
Well, no, but then he did. It didn't start out that way. It started out with doing Science of Mind as a supplement to people's study of Christianity and religion to show them how they can get more out of it. And then when ministers start reading the book and learning what he has to share and seeing that this is so important, they kept pressing him for this. He kept resisting for a while. He didn't mind practitioners because we had practitioners in New Thought already.
Okay.
But then when they pressed him enough, he finally said, okay, let's go for it. So he wanted it after a while, but it's like anything else, that wasn't initially his notion. But sometimes the vision that we start out with is not necessarily the vision we end up with. And sometimes the vision grows in spite of you. And he then had to grow in spite of himself to capture the vision of having a church. If Ernest didn't have a church, chances are we wouldn't even know anything about the Science of Mind right now.
That's true.
Because people take up books. There are many wonderful books in the market all around that tell you things. And you get to read them and, okay, put it on the shelf and that's it. But the reason Science of Mind still sells is because there's a church, there's an institution that uses the books.
Right.
And when there are enough of us that can see that this is worthwhile, then it keeps perpetuating.
Right.
And so Ernest will go on as a result of what he didn't want, but what was necessary to have.
So did Ernest know about, how did that,
Ernest knows a little bit, not necessarily process. I don't think, because Ernest used to say there's no process in treatment, there's a process of treatment. And, you know, Ernest saw everything as instantaneous. You know, it's there, and if you have it, believe it.
right,
I don't share Ernest's view on that.
yeah,
But I really am interested in process because everything happens in process
there's
in
a
this life.
sequential.
Yes, yeah. This here is our area where we have the radio programs. When he started this thing called Live, when he really made it famous and popular, and when I took over.
Oh, so you were
Back
on it
there.
too?
Yeah,
It
we'd
still
have to do
is.
it.
It's on our,
Still-
You
well,
can-
it's on our website. You know, if you go there, we're
Yeah.
there now because we're not on a station.
Right, right.
Yeah. We
But
don't
of course,
have,
there we have a universal, you know,
So you,
reach.
do you still do talks then?
I am not doing current talks.
But they're
but
old
we-
ones.
They're
we-
old,
we-
they're
we-
old.
yeah.
Nothing
Replays.
is old with it.
No, but replays. I mean, you could go
Yes.
and there's like an archive.
We
Yes,
have got a
yes,
huge
yeah,
archive.
Oh,
Yes, we do.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
this is some of the sketches, there are the sketches of the chapel,
The
as
chapel.
you can see here.
Uh-huh.
And these
And that
are,
is a Paul Williams design also, we found
Oh,
out.
wrinkles.
Yeah.
and then you can see, there's Rhonda Fleming here.
Yes.
Yeah, she's
Uh-huh.
right there.
That
And,
Oh, I thought that was Rickles. What's his the
John
comedian?
Rickles?
Yeah, I
Oh,
thought
no,
that's who
it's
that was.
Hornaday when he's older.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
them.
yeah, it does.
This is
it
them
does.
burning the mortgage on the place.
Oh, yeah. I
And
remember-
here's the Muhammad Ali thing. There's a
Oh.
letter from him and from his wife. And here's a picture of the gloves as they appeared in our case before they disappeared.
They disappeared.
Yeah.
Oh, how sad.
And you know, these are times when different things are happening at Founders and
Right.
Celebrate. You can just see how the seats are all filled up
Right.
and people are
Oh, my.
there celebrating.
This is when we went to member church status. Look at Roger Teal. He was such a baby.
So young. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
On this side over here, you can see the church being built,
Oh,
and you can
right.
see some of the early prints and
Wow.
when it was built.
This is, oh my goodness, this is beautiful, this, the history. And the chairs, tell me about the chairs. What,
Well,
were these?
these are the original chairs that were up in the sanctuary. You can see up
Ah,
here where
okay.
they were up here even, and this was in 1976.
Right,
And we have a discussion of the Wurlitzer over there as it
Uh-huh.
appeared in Theater Organ magazine. And this was the original, that right there shows the original organ right up there.
Right.
And that was named after Hazel Holmes right up there,
Right.
which is who was
Right.
Ernest's wife.
And you can also see that we had, big orchestration up here from
Oh.
time to time, you know, like Easter and Christmas and all that kind of thing. And you can see all the
right.
the
Yeah,
classical
Christmas. Yeah, you can
music.
tell this is Christmas with all the
Yes,
trees
right,
and stuff.
exactly.
That's beautiful. Oh, wow. And what are all these?
These are the people who contributed money to the chapel.
Oh,
Yeah, this
wow.
was from the Hornaday Hall dedication, 1964. Dr. Hornaday actually signed this 4 times.
Oh.
This is a marquetry table that belonged to Ernest Holmes.
Oh.
He, in addition to loving Chinese furniture, as can be seen
Uh-huh.
from the 2 chairs up there,
Right.
he also loved fine European furniture.
Oh, our director, the person, she would be going crazy right now with all this stuff.
She can drop by and I'll give her a tour anytime.
She will. She asked me how long of a drive it was. Now, what are all these?
But those are various things from the Hornaday era. They are some of his books and some tapes up there. And of course, he was big into sailing, so we have a lot of sailing ships.
Okay, beautiful. This is your chapel. This is
This is a chapel for weddings and funerals.
It seats
And,
420.
420? I mean, 420 is probably what our sanctuary
We,
seats.
we,
It's a big-
we had
it's a
a
big
person
church.
who was wanting to rent the chapel, and when I told him the seating, he says, that's not a chapel, that's a church.
Exactly. So let me ask you though, I mean, these are very different. You don't see these, I mean, this reminds me of Catholic Church with the pews, but we never had seats like this.
No, we used to have the bench seats.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so you did have bench seats?
No,
here?
no, Catholic.
Right.
I'm Catholic
But,
like you.
so you always have had cushioned seats like this
Yeah.
in here?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think this is a way to keep the costs down and still have some nice seats.
Very, very nice. Now, are these lit from behind?
Yes.
Your stained glass
Yeah,
windows?
those are stained glass.
This is really, really lovely. Very lovely. Very. It feels very churchy in here.
yeah.
You know, whereas the other one felt more like an auditorium.
Yeah.
But this does feel churchy
Yeah,
to me. You know, I guess going back to my Catholic days. But this is very beautiful, and I love you've got the symbol up there.
Yes.
The
Made into the.
very nice. And when we taped your first two talks, they were in here, and it is very intimate. It's
You saw them?
Yes,
Oh,
they
I
were
see.
very good,
Okay.
very good. So, well, thank you. This is history of our organization, and we're so blessed that Dr. Arthur was willing to take us on a tour of our roots, our roots. And I feel very blessed, and I want to thank you both for being here and showing and explaining the history. And I used to get excited when I go to home office and see what they had, but what you have here is a treasure, and we need to honor that. Thank you.
Well, we feel that way about it. We feel we're kind of holding this church in keeping for the entire movement, but the movement doesn't seem to either know it nor respect it.
Oh, well, they need to. They need to be here. They really do need to
We're
be
getting
here.
a little more notice here and there.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for this, and you got a little glimpse of some of our history, and I find it fascinating. It's nice to always know where your roots are. So thank you, blessings, and we'll see you next week. Well, that was so much fun. There's such an energy in there, in that sanctuary, and both of them, even the little one, which I said, actually that holds more than what our sanctuary holds. But truly, if you ever get a chance to be in Los Angeles, try to go see it. What was really for me was sad to see there are a lot of homeless around there, around the church there itself, and but there's a lot of homeless in Los Angeles, that whole Los Angeles area. But what I loved about Dr. Arthur is going to be doing a talk that we filmed while we were there, and we're going to show it on March 21st. So make sure you watch it. What I really loved about Dr. Arthur's talks was he did a lot of Bible. I'm not one who knows a lot about the Bible, but he really brought in a lot of Bible quotes, but then gave the spiritual meaning of those quotes. And I thought it was really powerful. And I really, go to his website. I know Krista's going to put that up there for the Founders Church. If you want to hear some of those talks, I forgot all about those recordings. I'm going to have to go back into his site and check those out and see what they're all about. But we have a rich history, and the story about Hornaday is pretty interesting. Who actually took over? He kind of as Dr. Arthur talked about, he kind of was a pastor together in that church, the spiritual leaders of that church. But Hornaday was very young. I believe, I can't remember exactly what Ernest's job was. I can't remember, he was in transit something, I don't know. But Hornaday had lost his father, and Dr. Holmes kind of took him under his wings and started teaching him this philosophy, I think when he was like 15 years old. So he was really almost like a son to Ernest Holmes. And it was really interesting. I was talking to our Yolanda Nava, and she used to go to that center. And I said, you need to come on and talk about your experience there. But she said that her son had I don't know how old he was, but he was young, and he had been riding his bike and had a really bad accident, and they were going to have to do brain surgery on him. And the hospitals were really busy, and they couldn't do the surgery right away. And she was panicking, and the doctors were, it didn't look well. She called Dr. Hornaday because she went to that church, and he was getting ready to do a service, and she told him the situation, and he immediately did a prayer treatment for her right then and there. And she said she felt it. She was calm. She never worried again. They did the surgery a couple weeks later. It went really fast. She said, in fact, during the surgery, her and her husband weren't even concerned. They went upstairs and they went to the children's leukemia department there and helped and sat with some of the parents and children. And her son was back at school playing sports and games in just a couple of weeks after the surgery. So it was very, very, very powerful. And yes, thank you, cool. Yes, I'm so grateful that I got to see. It is wonderful to see our roots. What was interesting is when I walked in there, because I was a recording secretary for Centers for Spiritual Living for years, and I used to go to Mile High Church when I was in Denver, which is an incredible place. And when I got to Founders, I said, oh, this reminds me of Mile High. And I was told that Roger Teal kind of copied the format of the Founders Church, wanted that same feeling. And he does have that feeling there. Now, they don't have their little chapel downstairs. It's a separate building, but it's that same feeling, that energy. And like I said, you can feel that energy when you're in there. Just being in there is pretty powerful. So if you're in the downtown LA area, look up the church, go to the church. Well, right now you probably can't, but when they reopen, I would love to go there when they do a Sunday service sometime. Maybe they'll do like a weekday service, and we can do what we did with Agape and take a bus and go to a service there, because I think everybody should experience the history. And that was just such a short glimpse. There's so much. They have downstairs, which we didn't even show. They have a professional kitchen and a big like cafeteria type setting where they would have breakfast or different events downstairs. It's a really incredible facility. It's a little old, but it's still really, there are some of the pictures of it. And that was when Dr. Arthur gave his talk downstairs. And it's just, he's delightful. A very good speaker. And we asked him if we could use one of his services at our center, and that's why on March 21st. But that's the website, I'm sure, with all the information that you can go and look at and get and find out a little bit about our history, because we do have a rich history. We have such a wonderful history. There's the founderslosangeles.org. Go check out their website and find out. Go to our roots. And if you ever are in Colorado, if you can go to the headquarters, on the outskirts of Denver. They have a beautiful room. They have an archive center there where they have a lot of the memorabilia also of Dr. Holmes and people that have been in our movement, and they collect a lot of things from way back. And it's kind of nice to know that we have this rich history and how it all came about. But when I was in the main sanctuary that seats 1,800, and back in the day, that was packed. That was such a new thing for people to be hearing, that they were hungry for spirituality. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have where we could Facebook, where people can get so much spiritual information and share it. They had a lot of people. They shared with me that they even had Mickey Rooney used to collect the money on Sunday. He was one of the ushers, and they had to stop having him do it because he'd start dancing and joking around and would never they would hold up the collection. So there were a lot of people in Hollywood that were really involved in our teaching. And then I know that the one that Dr. Walker started too, because he was very theatrical. He had a lot of Hollywood celebrities too that were involved at his center. So we do have a rich history. And what I learned from Dr. Arthur that really resonated with me, something that he said is, and I really believe this, that our teaching, what we teach, the science of mind, we're not trying to convert anybody to our way. Dr. Chang said that Ernest wanted, he thought with our teaching, if you were Catholic or if you were Christian or Jewish, that what it would do was it would even enhance your beliefs. It would make you see it from a higher view, from a different perspective, and really resonate with your soul. So I encourage anyone that make sure you watch our Sunday services. There's so many wonderful things online for science of mind. I really think, we're not asking you to change what you believe, but this might just enhance it. This might answer questions that you have about your faith. It was so interesting because on the way there, Jeff Harrison and I were talking, and I was talking about how I was raised Catholic and how when I had my first child, I realized, oh my gosh, how much I loved this little bundle that they put in my arms. And at that moment, I thought, as much as I love this child that I don't even know yet, but it's a part of me already, that how much must that divine intelligence love us? And there is no way that my children could ever do anything in their lifetime that I would banish them to burn in hell through eternity. That's not the God I believe in. I believe in a loving God, and I believe that this divine intelligence looks at each and every one of us like we're a little 2 or 3 year old, that we're just learning, we're experiencing life. What we teach in our philosophy is that you are not punished for your sins, you are punished by your sins. And what we consider a sin is when you're off the mark, when you do something. But even then, it's an opportunity to learn and to grow. So that's what we're all about here at the center. We're about teaching you tools. We don't teach you what to think. We teach you how to think, how to look at life, how to look at the world, how to see love and beauty and live in that gratitude every moment of your life. Gratitude is one of the most powerful energies that you put out there. And the more you are grateful, the more that will come back to you. And so, saying that, there's a donate button there where you can support our 10 o'clock programs. You can support Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert. and to help us so that we can continue to remind you of who you are, to remind you of the power that you have to create the life that you desire. If you have an idea, it's not an accident. It came from spirit, and it's up to you to take the ball and run with it. And that's what we're here for. We are here to help you fulfill your dreams, to step into your power, to recognize that you are one with divine spirit energy. Even if you're an atheist, Science of Mind will help you even be a better atheist. It will help you to really use the power that is within you to create the life you want, to not live in fear, not to be worried about what's going on out there. And so I really encourage you to continue watching our programs. Next week, I'm going to have a little different program. We have a group at Center for Spiritual Living called Helping Parents Heal. And I believe it was last week, I met with Reverend Michael, and we talked about the 50 shades of grief. And next week, we're going to focus on a special grief, which is the grief of a parent. You know, we can lose loved ones, but as a parent, when you lose a child, that's a part of your soul. And, you know, just like steel magnolias, they're not supposed to go before we do. We're supposed to leave. And there's such a deep, deep emptiness in one's soul sometimes when they lose a child. So next week, we're going to have Vicki Ruff, who's a practitioner at our center, who facilitates and leads the group at our center. And we're going to have a couple of mothers who have lost children. And they're going to talk to you about what they have done and where they are on this journey called healing. And they really feel connected to their child on the other side. You know, I remember when James Van Praagh came and spoke at our center. Thank you, Mark, Reverend Mark. Thank you so much. Hopefully I see you soon too. Anyway, when James Van Praagh came and he talked about when we make our transition, in Science of Mind, we don't call it death because we believe life is eternal and that our soul keeps on going and we keep moving forward. And James Van Praagh said that when you make your transition, it's literally like just stepping up on a little higher platform, but that everybody is still here, that we just don't see them, that intelligence, they go off, they do things, but that we are always around. And they're going to talk about some of the tools that they've been using, some of their experiences they've had with actually connecting with their child from the other side and the little messages that they get. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. So if you know anyone who's lost a child and they're grieving, or maybe you have, really, you might want to listen to this and hear what they have to say. And like I said, I don't know for myself, I don't know how I would ever get over that. You're sad when you lose a parent or a sibling, but I can't even imagine what it would be like to lose a child. So please join me next week for that. And then the week after that, get this book, The Dynamic Laws of Healing by Catherine Ponder. I'm going to actually do a book study on this. We're going to actually do it in a Zoom platform. So if you're not shy about being on camera and having people see you, you could always darken your screen if you don't want to be there. But I love book studies and I love the participation. And I started reading this because I was looking for affirmations, because Jeff Harrison's on me to get affirmations for health. And I thought, oh, Catherine Ponder always has great affirmations. But this book surprised me because she really, really talks about denial in health. And she really talks about the fact that everything is consciousness. If you have a disease, it's because there's something within you, a belief that you might not even be conscious of, that's buried in your subconscious, that is causing your illness or causing anything in your life that isn't work that you don't feel is working. So join me for that in a couple of weeks. And there's the thank you for putting up the banner for that. And I'm not quite sure how long it's going to be. It might be about 6 weeks, but every week will be different. Every week will stand on its own, and it'll be fun. We'll have fun, and I want you to participate. I want you to ask questions as we're reading this so that you get a deeper understanding of the power that you have. It's not that I want you to think that I'm so powerful. I want everybody to know how powerful they are. So that will be starting on March 18th. So I think that's about it. I've kind of rambled on and on. I hope you enjoyed this. This was a little different. And again, make sure you tune in for our Sunday services, and also for sure on March 21st and hear the talk of Dr. Arthur Chang. So grateful for his graciousness and his allowing us to share his talk and his message, and allowing us to roam around his spiritual home, which is really all of our spiritual home. It is our origin. So everyone, have a very blessed weekend. Know that you are loved. Know that you are powerful. Know that you are divine. Bye-bye.